Thank you for joining us today. Today's program is Finding Your Family Story at the Genealogy Center. Our guest speaker is Elizabeth Hodges. Elizabeth is an Irish historian, former museum educator, and senior genealogy librarian at the Allen County Public Library Genealogy Center in Fort Wayne, Indiana. She obtained her first master's degree in Irish and Irish American Studies at the New York University while working as an educator at the Lower East Side Tenement Museum. Upon graduating from NYU, she began working for the New York Public Library in the Lionel Pincus and Princess Burial Map Division.
Yeah.
I'm sure I pronounced that wrong.
No, you were actually close.
Okay.
Yeah.
While working to obtain an MSLIS from St. John's University in New York. As a senior genealogy librarian at the Allen County Public Library Genealogy Center, she has helped countless patrons discover their family stories, in addition to participating in dozens of speaking engagements and managing the Genealogy Center's digital community album. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for joining us today. Before I get started, I'm actually going to turn my camera off just while I'm presenting. I'll reappear during Q&A just because my face is distracting. You want to see the good stuff, which is my slides. So I'm going to turn my camera off and we'll go ahead and get started. So finding your family story at the Genealogy Center, that is something that you can do any number of ways. For those of you who are not familiar with the Genealogy Center at the Allen County Public Library, I'm going to give you a bit of a run through of, who we are, and I'll show you some things on our website that you should be able to access from home, and also if you're planning on visiting us. So let's jump on in. So a couple facts about the Genealogy Center. Our department is 42,000 square feet. We have 1.34 million physical items. So that's a little over 500,000 books, little under 800,000 items of what we call microtext, which is our special word for microfilm and microfiche. But we're adding about 500 plus physical items to our collection every month. So this is a ever-growing collection. We also digitize a lot of stuff. So we will digitize donations that are brought to us. And we'll digitize books through our scanning partners, which I'll talk a little bit about. But we have about 5 to 6 million searchable digital records that you can access for free. And we're adding somewhere around 10,000 new every month to our collection. So that's over 6.34 million items in total. So with those numbers, you're probably thinking, my God, this place is huge. Okay, how big is it? Where does it rank? So we're actually the second largest collection of genealogy and local history materials in the country, just behind the Family Search Library in Salt Lake. So that's kind of who we are. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to go through some of our resources and show you where you can find things on our website and in our collection. So let's start first with our free and on-site databases. So if you go to our website, which is genealogycenter.org, you can access our free and on-site databases a couple ways. First being, if you click on this red Our Resources button, this is the easiest way to get into those databases. The other way is if you were to click this Genealogy Services button up here at the top, there's a drop-down menu and you should be able to get into our resources that way. But honestly, the easiest way is to click on the big red button. Once you're there, you are brought to this page where it says Research Resources, and it has information about our databases and links to get into each one. Now, this is a combined list of our free and on-site databases. Now, the difference between the two is actually kind of important. Free, you can access from anywhere in the world. You don't need a library card, none of that. So you can get into that from anywhere. On-site, you have to actually be physically in the building to get into on-site databases. These are typically things that we pay for, so you don't have to. So things like Ancestry, Find My Past, etc. That's how you get into those. So you can, if you wanted to, filter by database type, if you don't want to see them all mixed in together, say you just want the free ones, you can click that and filter it down. The other thing you can do is you can filter by demographic. So say you want Asian resources, kind of some general resources, Indiana, there's other states as well. You just have to scroll down this menu. Jewish resources. So you can kind of filter the databases down that way if you wanted to. This is a list of our 24 on-site databases. There's a lot going on here. Now, I'm not going to dwell too much on these databases. You can explore and see what we have if you want to. I have a link to this page in the handout, but I'm not going to dwell too long on our on-site databases just because you guys aren't here. You're in Buffalo. So we're going to talk more about those free databases. So this is our list of free databases. So our microtext catalog, that is just our little catalog of microfilm and microfiche. That, is pretty straightforward. The ones in red that we have here, the African American Gateway, the Native American Gateway, which we actually just changed the name of that to Indigenous Peoples of North America. Our Military Heritage and Percy. We're going to go into those a little bit more detail, but all these databases are things that we've made. Family Bible records, these are things that, so say you have a family Bible at home, you can scan the page where you have all that good family information, and you can send it to us and we'll add it to this database. If you're looking for family Bibles, this could be a good place to look for that kind of information. Family resources, similar thing. People will send us books that they've written. They'll send us their research materials, and we are scanning those and then putting them into those family resources. When we get to the Q&A, if any of you want me to show you more in detail, either of those, I can do that. But let's go ahead and start first with the free databases. But there's one thing I want to show you. You can search these databases. When you're on our homepage, this search bar up here in the top right, the default is search the research catalog. That's searching the things that we have on the shelves. If you want to search the free databases, you would just click this little drop-down menu and click free databases. The thing to keep in mind with this is that it's really just a surname search. So to show you an example, I searched the name Hardin, Hardin, and the way it will list these resources is it'll list generally first Allen County, and then it goes down to Indiana if I was to keep scrolling, and then other state resources. So it gets into all these different things that we've digitized, and you'll see how many times that name appears in these different records. So the next thing I want to point out on our homepage is the Family History Archives button. So the Family History Archives button is this light blue button right next to our resources. And this will bring you to a page that talks about digitized books that are in our collection. We have a relationship with Family Search and Internet Archive, and they have scanning stations in our basement. So if you were to click on, say, Family Search Digital Library first, it brings you right to their page, and you can search all the books that they have, not just things that we've scanned, but other scanning partners as well. So for just stuff from our collection, we've scanned a little more than 500,000 books, and the Family Search missionaries are amazing. They are constantly scanning stuff. They're searchable, they're downloadable, and they're free. Free is good, right? Internet Archive, as of today, this is how many we have in just our collection of things that have been added to Internet Archive. But if you don't use Internet Archive, you should. I would highly recommend just doing a general search in Internet Archive, which is archive.org. Just see what you can find. I have found some really great stuff just digging around in Internet Archive that I might not have been able to find otherwise. So highly recommend digging through that. Now, the African American Gateway, this is one of our databases that's kind of like a way to point you to resources. So to find that, if you're back on our homepage, if you keep scrolling down the page, you'll see these 4 boxes here. And you'll see the African American Gateway here. Now you can click on this and open it, but you can also click on this red Our Resources button, and it's listed in those free databases. Now, on the African American Gateway homepage or their landing page, you have these different options of clicking United States, regions, other countries, specific subjects. Just for the sake of time, we're just going to go into United States. And from here, you can click on an individual state. So we're going to click on North Carolina. And the first thing it does is it gives you a very long list of websites. These are all free resources that link to places outside of our library. We're constantly adding stuff to that list of websites. So check back to that page periodically and see if new things have been added. And then under that, now I do want to point out for North Carolina, I mean, the list just keeps going, which is really, really great. I mean, these are really amazing resources to dig into. Now, if you were to keep going down the page, you'll have this bibliography. So you'll have general at the top, and then it's alphabetical by county. These are not nearly everything we have, but it's meant to give people an idea of what we might have. But most importantly, you have these call numbers. This is where you can find it on the shelves. But if you're not here, this is just a good bibliography to work with. It can give you some ideas of what books you might want to look at. And then you can go to something like worldcat.org and see, does your library have it? Or is there a library near you that has these books? Now, the Indigenous Peoples of North America Gateway, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but I do want to show it to you. That is just above the African American Gateway, but it is also in that free database list under Our Resources. If you were to click on that button, it brings you to this lovely landing page where you have guides from the federal government. There's some records linked, our records, and even more information linked in here. Now, the next thing is Our Military Heritage. This is a free database that we really, really love. It's very cool. I love when people bring us things to loan to us to scan. We'll add it to this, or things to donate to us. We'll add it to this collection. You will have photographs and books and pamphlets and other government documents. I've seen diaries, unit histories, all kinds of really, really awesome stuff. So if we were to click on this, so this is back under those free databases. So if you were to click on that red Our Resources button, this is just further down the list. If you click on Our Military Heritage, you'll see all these different military conflicts, starting with the colonial wars, ending with Iraq and Afghanistan. But we also have things for peacetime service, yearbooks. Another thing you can do is search all of them. So if you're to click on there, you can search through all of these conflicts. Just as an example, I clicked on the War of 1812, and you'll see at the top biographies, diaries, and then these are all individuals. Each one of these will link to more information that you can dig into. Just further down the page, people will also send us pension records, which is really great. There's also lineage society stuff, unit histories. I mean, the list is just endless. So the next thing I want to talk a little bit about are pathfinders. So pathfinders are basically research guides. So if you are back on our homepage, genealogycenter.org, if you click on this Genealogy Services tab at the very top, or if you just hover over it, this big drop-down menu will come down. What you'll want to look through are these. So if we click Search by State, it brings you to a list of research guides and record indexes for every single state. Because y'all are in New York, I took some screenshots of our New York subject guide. So these are meant to give people an idea of what we might have, but it is not nearly everything we have for the state of New York. But it also kind of helps people get to a place in the stacks like physically in the book, in the shelves, where they might want to browse a shelf and just look for more stuff. So you have the titles over here and then the call numbers on the left. Now, here are the next 2 pages of that. I will say, this is also another instance where it's just a good bibliography. If you see something in here where you're like, I want to see this, but I'm in Buffalo, I can't just make a trip out to Fort Wayne. See if a library near you has it. Or you can always send us an email and say, hey, could you look up John Smith and 800,000 more vital records of Eastern New York State? We can do that. So we do look up requests for people all the time. You just have to send us an email and with the name of the book and who you're looking for. And this is just the last page of that 4.5-page guide for New York. Now, we also have subject indexes. So these are for specific subjects. So we have African American, Anabaptist and Mennonite, genealogy, German and Germanic. That is a huge subject guide, namely because there are just so many Germans in the Midwest. And we have a very, very large German collection within our physical collection. This just is an example of one of those subject guides. So this is just next steps and discoveries. So these are good research guides of like kind of how-to books to get into. We also have, you know, a very lengthy African American guide as well. So this is just meant to give you an idea of some of the stuff that we might have and maybe what you might want to look at. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is the Periodical Source Index, PERSI. So many of you are probably thinking, okay, what is this thing, PERSI? It is the largest subject index of genealogical, historical, and ethnic periodical publications that are published in North America and the British Isles. So as of July 23rd, we have around 3.15 million subject entries. Now, when I say subject entries, I'm being very specific when I say subject entries. It's not an every name index, which means that if your ancestor is mentioned in an article about cemeteries, they are not the subject. Cemeteries are. But if your ancestor, say John Adams, this is an article about him, he is the subject. I'll get into what that would look like when you're searching in just a moment. But what we're doing primarily is focusing on those geographic and ethnic publications. The reason why this isn't an every name index is because when this started in the 80s, you know, we didn't think we would be able to index enough at the level of an every name index. So this is kind of a middle ground that allows us to index millions of articles. And I mean, there's still over 3 million subjects. So there's a lot to dig in here. Now, if you don't use periodicals in your family history research, you're potentially eliminating over 1/3 of materials that could provide you with answers, suggestions, hints, and breadcrumbs, and just sources where you can continue your search. Also, when you hit the brick wall stage in your research, where you think you've found everything online and in book form and on microfilm, I can guarantee you there is always the possibility of another critical clue in a periodical just waiting for you to find it. So in this list I have here of these benefits, one thing I want to kind of point out is unique, forgotten, or lost sources of data. Just a little story time for you. I'm originally from Louisiana, and there was some church records I needed from St. John the Baptist Parish, but the church was destroyed. Now, not the church, but the records were destroyed, probably in a hurricane. Now, here's the thing. Before those records were destroyed, somebody had abstracted those church records years before, published it in a periodical. Now that church record abstract is the only copy of those records that exist because they were destroyed. So you can find gold digging through these periodicals. I also really like, you know, lists of publications and book reviews because it'll give me some ideas of maybe books I want to look at that will give me even more breadcrumbs to follow. Another great thing is lists of holdings in regional libraries and archives. You want to research where your people lived, right? You want to dig into the libraries and the archives around the area where your ancestors lived. But if you don't live there, you might not necessarily know everything that they have. So these lists are actually really, really helpful. But most importantly, there is just a wide variety of material types in a single publication, so you never really know what you're going to find until you start digging in them. So the types of periodical publications that you'd use for genealogy, these are going to be your society publications, so like your genealogical, your historical, your family surname, and ethnic publications, special interest group publications. We also have technology and online publications. This picture over here on the right, this is a very long wall on the east side of our department, and all these boxes are periodicals. So what we do when we get them in, and we get thousands in every month, either physically through the mail or we will get them through email and print them, we'll put them in these boxes. And then once we have a year or two of a single publication, we'll bind it together and put it on the shelves. So that way your grandchildren's grandchildren can look through them and they don't get torn up as individual pages. This is just another example of unique, forgotten, or lost sources of data. So this is extracts from the Church of Ireland parish registers for Ballyboy in what is now present-day County Offaly. These records, a lot of them were destroyed in the Public Records Office fire in 1922. But there was a copy of the vestry book and some extracts from the register that survive. If you can't make it over there to Ireland to find these originals, or these copies, I should say, this is a good middle ground for you. Another thing is you will have extracts from the census. So I'm talking a little bit about Ireland, partially because, you know, Irish history is my thing, but I also know that there were a lot of Irish people in Buffalo. I want to point this out specifically because the story of the Irish census, for those who have Irish ancestors, you all know it's a depressing story. So the 1821 census for County Monaghan, and there was a historian named Dennis Carolyn Rush, and he was able to abstract, will basically save extracts from that 1821 census, and they had not been published before this article, if you see down here. So this is kind of a great way to get a hold of some of those records that you might not have been able to see otherwise. So just so you can see what those look like, just going to the next page, you'll see, you know, names, ages, and occupations. It's great stuff. And when I said earlier that a single periodical issue can contain multitudes, this table of contents is just a really good example of that. I mean, the first article is about somebody being murdered. The next article is just about plantations. We have a census. We have things about the law, so acts of Louisiana legislature, introductory type articles of like how to do certain types of research, all kinds of good stuff in a single issue. So I'm going to show you quickly how you can actually do searches in Percy. So if you're on our homepage, if you scroll down the page, back to those 4 little boxes, you will see the periodical source index. You can click there and open it and get in that way. Or you can click on this lovely red Our Resources button, which brings you into that big list of databases that we talked about. Now, if you click on the periodical source index button, it brings you to the Percy homepage. Now, if you've ever used Percy in the past, when it was hosted on other subscription-based platforms, you'll see that this looks different. If you've used it before, there might be a little bit of a learning curve just because it's different than it used to be, but it's actually a little more straightforward than it used to be, and it's easier to learn how to use. But most importantly, it's free to use. So what we're going to do is do a quick run through of the search mechanisms together, starting with the surname button. Now, a lot of people will start with this button and end their search with this button. I'm here to tell you, don't do that. The reason why I say don't do that is because if the article is not about your ancestor, then it's not going to appear. So if you were to search a name like street, now I picked a particularly specific or unique name because street is both a name and something you drive down or walk down. The way Percy is set up now, it knows the difference between the two. So if we were to search street, you will be brought to this search result page. Now, there are a couple things I want to point out on this page. You have these 4 columns. From left to right, you have the article title. These are not exact verbatim titles. They're actually shortened titles. In the past, Percy, they were only allowed to enter a certain number of characters into the title field. So they are abbreviated. The next column over is the periodical title. So this is the name of the publication, volume and issue number, and where you can find it on our shelves. Year published, and then all the way on the right, you have the publisher. So who published it and their address. The reason why we include this is so if you want to contact the publisher and try to get articles from them, you can do that. The next thing I want to point out is this search bar up here. This will allow you to filter your results by putting in some keywords. Now, wildcard searches don't work, not a thing. But you can simulate them in a way. Now, this search bar here will search all 4 of these columns. But if you scroll down the page, at the bottom of that search result page, you'll see the number of entries, and you will see a search bar at the bottom of every column. This will allow you to search in individual columns. So if you're looking for a particular publication, you can search here, or say you just want to search the title and you want to kind of filter these out, you can do it that way. So say I just wanted to see articles about the street family in Tennessee. I could type in TN, so the postal code abbreviation, and filter it that way. I would strongly recommend when you're trying to filter to states, if you're doing it like this, is to use those postal abbreviations. Because like I said, Percy, only a certain number of letters could fit in that title column. So now they continue to still use these postal code abbreviations. But doing this, it is searching all 4 columns. So that filters it down to 15 entries out of over 100. So that makes it a little bit more manageable. Now, a lot of people, like I said, they'll start with searching in the surname button and they'll kind of end there. Like I said, don't end your search there. You will probably find more in these location searches. So if we click on United States, and you can select a state and you can do either general, so leave county empty, or you can pick a county. So because of who I'm talking to today, I chose Erie County. And it will bring you to a page like this. Now, I couldn't fit all these subject entries in one screenshot, but these all are subject entries that will bring you to articles about that subject. So just to show you an example of what that would look like, I clicked on cemeteries, and that brings you to this page, very similar to that surname search result page. Now, if you want to say see, articles about the 1870s, if you type 187, it will give you everything with 187 in it. So that will be 1873, 1872, 1870, etc. So that's what I mean by, even though it doesn't do wildcard searches, you can kind of simulate that in a way. One thing to keep in mind when using Percy is when you're looking at those search results, like before you start filtering down, take a minute and look through the search result list and see how things are being abbreviated. Try to get into the mind of indexers of the past and present, and that'll help you a lot. So just typing 187, it filters it down to 11 entries from 129. So again, a lot more manageable than over 100. Now, I do want to point out that every county and state, they're going to have more or less articles on specific subjects than others. So this is Orleans Parish in Louisiana. You're going to have articles about the French Revolution, for example, but you're not necessarily going to have that for, Erie County, New York, not necessarily. So it all kind of depends. And if it's a rural area, you might also have less of a certain type of record and more of another type of record. It all kind of depends. So to show you an example here of just how else you can filter down, we're going to take a look at church records under Orleans Parish because there are a lot of them. So up here, you'll see the path, kind of where we were going, and you can click on any of these to go back if you don't want to press the back button. Now, I wanted to see just baptismal records under church records. So I started to type BAPT. That will pick up baptismal spelled out completely and it abbreviated. So I oftentimes don't even type an entire word when I'm searching in there, and it will give me more results, and I'm less likely to accidentally filter out something that I would want to see. One thing you want to do also is just be creative with your searches and remember to try to think outside the box. This is what we should be doing with genealogy anyway, but you should definitely do it when using Percy. So just to show you another example, we're going to look at Pulaski County, Arkansas. So this is the list of subject entries. We're going to take a look at institutions. Now, I went ahead and kind of filtered this down a little bit because I saw this in the list and I'm like, huh, that's interesting. These Freedmen Bureau bank records, I did pull these and they are referring to the Freedmen's Bureau. But what's kind of interesting is that these are under institutions, not under African American. So, like I said, you kind of have to be a little creative when you're doing your searches. Now, since you guys are so close to Canada, we'll talk a little bit about Canada, just because it's slightly different than the United States button, but not vastly different. So if you click on Canada, you would just select the province, and instead of there being a drop-down menu for county, you have a search box where you would type in the county or city or town. And that's just because there are only 5 provinces that have counties in Canada: Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, Quebec, and Ontario. So I just decided to do Ontario province-wide, and I wanted to look at vital records. But I specifically wanted to look at marriage records. By typing MARR, I get both marriages spelled out and marriages abbreviated. If you scroll to the bottom, you'll see it filtered that down from 1,600 entries to 694. So that's a lot more manageable, but even still, if I was to continue this search, I would filter it down more by going down here and adding more keywords to make that list even shorter. Now, we're going to very briefly talk about the British Isles, but specifically Ireland, because Ireland is a really good example of why you need to keep political historical timelines in mind when you're doing genealogy research. And that is true even with Percy. So the subjects of many, if not most of the articles in Percy relate to records, local histories, etc., from before the partition of Ireland in 1921. So if you are searching for articles in a county that's currently in Northern Ireland, you will want to search under both Northern Ireland and Ireland. Also, regarding county and city and town names, if you're searching for a county that is also the name of a town, for example, Cavan Town, County Cavan, or Derry, County Derry, it will pick up both. It will lump both articles about the city and the county together, so it won't exclude one or the other. Now, regarding something like Derry or Londonderry, you get a lot of name changes in Ireland. You want to search under both. to just show you an example of why you want to search under both, just look at church records. Under the Republic of Ireland for Derry, you have 38 church records. For Londonderry, you have 12. So it all kind of depends. It depends on the verbiage used in the article itself. Northern Ireland, searching Derry, this is all you get. So that's why you want to look under the Republic. Now this other countries button, we're going to open that up and you'll see this list of countries. And you'll see some things on here where there are countries that don't exist anymore. Like if you were to scroll down, I'm pretty sure the USSR is on this list. You'll also see British West Indies, French West Indies, which we'll take a look at right now. So you got French Guyana, French Sudan. Again, this is where you want to keep political historical timelines in mind when you're searching for things in Percy. But you should be doing that anyway in your research, especially when talking about Europe. So I just clicked on France nationwide. It doesn't let you filter down to a province or anything like that, but you can do that once you open up any of these subject categories. You can filter it down once you're in there. The last two buttons I'm going to talk about are the research technique button and the article title keyword. These research technique articles, these are meant to give you an idea of how to research something or where to find something. So for census records, if you search that, you'll be given this list where it's like census records and it says the country. So because Ireland's census is challenging and we are often looking for census substitutes, let's take a look at that. There are 148 articles. You'll see in this list, you'll have things like, how to search the 1901 census online. You'll have this article about how they were trying to get the government to release the 1926 census early, which unfortunately didn't happen. But you also have some research tips, some census substitutes. It's a good way to just get an idea of more places to go if you're stuck. Article title keyword search. This is good if you are looking for a certain type of article, but you're not quite sure where it would fall in those subject categories. Or maybe you remember reading an article, but you can't remember all the details. But you might remember a couple words from the title. This is the place to search. So if I wanted to see articles about indentures, I would type that. And then what I did is I wanted to just see indentures in Maryland. And that filters it down for me from over 900 to 18. Now, some of you are probably thinking, well, how do I find what years you have for a specific publication? Can you find that in Percy? Not exactly, but you can search for the periodical title or the publication title in the library's online catalog. So if you go back to genealogycenter.org, you'll see that search bar in the top right that I pointed out earlier. Searching the research catalog, you just put in the publication title and look for it that way. So I searched the New York Genealogical and Biographical Record. Now, this is directly from the search result page. A lot of people will see this website and then see one link. That doesn't mean that there's only one link. There's probably many. This is also a good way of finding some digitized books. If you feel like searching through Internet Archive is a little too overwhelming, you could try our catalog. So at the top, you'll see the title, but if you keep scrolling down, you'll see all those digitized volumes. So the record has been digitized through 1924. If you were to keep searching, going down the page, you would see the list of all the issues that we have, as well as where it lives on the shelves. But if you were to click on any of those links, it brings you right to that issue in Internet Archive. Now, I put this information in the handout, and I'm trying to be conscious of time because I know some of you probably have questions. But if you want to request articles, I would try contacting the publisher or finding it in a library near you first. If that doesn't pan out, you can request them from us. It's not the fastest or simplest way to get your articles. That's why I'm not putting it at the top of the list, but we will do it. There is a fee, $7.50 for up to and including 6 articles, plus 20 cents a page. And we don't include the periodical cover or title page. To request articles from us, you'll just have to mail a filled out copy of the request form I linked in the handout. And there's instructions on that form. One thing to note, though, we can't make copies of periodicals published in Europe because they have stricter copyright laws. And one thing we will not do is violate copyright law. Now, last thing I want to point out to all of you is we do virtual programs. We do 2 a week, every week, and we record many of those programs. And we also offer free half-hour consultations. So where you can find more information about all of that is if you want to know more about our programs, you can click on programs and more. Or if you wanted to see a recorded program, this little button all the way on the right in these social media buttons, that is the link to YouTube. But if you were to click on this programs and more button, you have direct links to all of our upcoming programs, things, special things we have coming up, like conferences and whatnot, and the program video archive that brings you to YouTube. So currently, as of this morning, we have 329 videos on YouTube. So if there's a specific type of topic you're looking for, these are great resources to look at. The handouts are often linked in the description of those videos. You often have to press more, see more info in those descriptions. But this is a great free resource for you to just dig into. Now, if you're on our homepage, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, there is a box called Genealogy Events. This is links to where you can register for all of our virtual programs. So pretty easy place to find it. And then as far as consultations go, if you hover or click on this Genealogy Services tab at the top, under Getting Started, Family History Consultation, it'll bring you to a page where you can fill out a form and just say, hey, I want to have a consultation. We do them both in person and virtually through Zoom, and we will do them through email as well. So we want to help people regardless of where they are. You don't have to live in Allen County. You don't have to have a library card. In fact, we kind of discourage people from getting them because it doesn't give you any more or less access to our stuff. So with that, the most important thing to remember is we're here to help. We want your discovery journey to be successful. So if you have questions, feel free to email us at any point, and we're more than happy to help. So I'm going to turn my camera back on and see if there are any questions.